Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Cop Chef. Change me from hourly to salary to cut my pay? Okay. This takes place in the before times when people could eat out and gather in large numbers. I used to work as a chef for an owner who liked to micromanage things and was a bit narcissistic. I'd been working there about 3 years, getting good reviews, customers loved me, updated the menu, made everything from scratch. People used to think the place was open box/heat serve food. Quality had gone up, morale was great in my kitchen. Annual sales went from $850,000 to $1.4 million, about maximum capacity for the space. The increase in sales and income went to the owner's head. He was always spending money on frivolous things and squandering cash. Sound system, stage for the event space, etc. One example, I needed a new Alto sham. A used one would have sufficed. He bought the top-of-the-line one that could be used as a smoker too. $12,000 versus what I wanted could be gotten for $1,500. Granted, I enjoyed that piece of equipment, which, after I left, they no longer used the smoker function. Years later, I still occasionally get email invoices from a vendor and see they bring in pre-cooked smoked meats now. I was hourly, but then the owner realized during the busy season, I and my sous chef put in 70 to 80-hour weeks. Doing this, he realized I made more take-home pay from his business than he did. At peak times, he'd maybe work 40 to 50 hours a week. So to save money, he puts me and my sous on a salary, effectively cutting my pay by about $10,000 a year. My sous netted a loss of $2,000 a year if we were to work at our current level of effort. During all of this, the owner is saying he is not expecting us to work over 40 hours a week ever. He even has written this into our contracts. So with the extra time off at home with family, it is okay. I still like the job and my staff. During the slower time, this was great. Also during this time, I had won a local award for my cooking, and the narcissistic owner was not too pleased. He was no longer recognized as the creative force in the kitchen that bears his name, so his meddling and micromanaging increased. It had gone from, "It's your kitchen, Cop Chef, do what you want," to, "It's my name and my kitchen, do it this way." Morale and quality began to suffer. Just prior to the holiday season, my sous wants to go back to his home country for 2.5 months. November, December, and January peaks crazy time for us. I have good help and am good with it. Owner approved the time off. Owner thinking I am gonna save him some money that holiday season by working my usual 70 to 80 hours a week? Nope. Cue the malicious compliance. I started writing the holiday schedule. Sue is on vacation. I have my 40 during key prep times and peak business times. The rest of my staff gets serious overtime. Basically, the Sue and I carried a lot of weight in the kitchen and could outperform most of our small staff. So with Sue on vacay and I only pulling 40, full-time staff is now working 60-ish hours a week, and part-timers are getting 40. Things are running pretty smoothly until the owner realizes I'm not there like I always am during the holiday rush. He's in the kitchen more trying to micromanage my staff, give them poor advice considering my directions and timing for events, screwing up the small parties my staff could handle while I'm off. After a few weeks of this, he realizes he's going to be paying the staff out more in overtime than he saved on moving me and my sous to salary. He starts demanding I work more hours to stop hemorrhaging overtime to the kitchen staff. I show him my contract where I am not expected to work over 40 hours a week. Now he says it's just a guideline. I hold him to the 40 a week. It's Christmas and now I can for once spend time with my family. Now with my sous returning, I'm burned out from the constant micromanaging and gaslighting by the owner. I hand the reins to my sous and change careers after 25 years in the industry and never look back. Let me ask you guys something. If you're in a job that pays well and gives great hours, is it worth it to stay at that job if you have to put up with an owner that micromanages and gaslights? Or is it never worth it in your opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Always the Noob. You're not here to think. Ouch, but okay. About a decade ago, I was the new guy at the company. We have people fly in from all over the world to start putting gear together before leaving again for job sites. And one of the things I did in my earlier days was pick those people up from the airport, take them to their hotel after work, etc. I pick up a guy who's going to be my boss on an upcoming job. The airport is about an hour from our HQ and hotel if you take the highway and main roads. When I meet him at the airport, he makes a request that I follow the directions on this awesome new GPS app that he's got on his phone. Swears it finds the absolute fastest routes. I'm paid by the hour and I'm the new guy, so sure, no problem. It ends up taking almost 25% longer than the main roads would have, but I'm not bothered. The next day, I'm asked to take him to his hotel. It's a straight shot a few miles down the road, but the road is always stop and go at rush hour. I make a turn off the road almost immediately in order to take a route that I know is faster, and he starts giving me a gentle amount of grief about not listening to his magical GPS app. I get him to the hotel in great time, but he still just won't stop insisting that the main road, which we could see was backed up, would have been faster. Okay, fine. A couple days later, we drive a few hours to our primary job site. The trip is fine, I follow his magic app and we arrive without incident. It's the largest job I've done so far and I admittedly stumbled with a little bit of it. Boss tries to give me a pep talk at the end of day one but fails miserably. One of the critiques he gave me is, "You're not here to think." There are engineers on the job and there are techs. I'm just a tech and I'm told I'm basically there to do grunt work as spect and just listen to what people like him tell me to do. Pretty demoralizing lecture, honestly, but I take it to heart. Once the event is over, it's my job to take Boss Man back to the airport, which I'd like to remind you at this point is in the city I live in and not where he's from. We're running a little later than I would prefer to, but he's the kind of guy who would rather get to the airport 15 minutes before his flight boards. And as always, we're using his GPS, which he is still raving about. I don't know if the dude's friend invented the app or something, but he's just seriously fawning over it. Well, we approach what I know is the exit to the airport, but the app says to stay on the highway and take the next exit in a mile or two. So I follow the app, having learned my lesson from the boss, and soon we're stopped dead in a tight, single-lane construction zone. Boss realizes this and starts to panic, and then starts asking if I'm sure I took the right route. The exit I'd normally take for the airport was a little ways back, but the GPS said to keep going. "You went past the exit for the airport?" His voice was raised but not shouting. "I went past an exit for the airport," I calmly replied. "I'm sure this one will get us there, but with the speed traffic is moving, I don't know if we'll make your flight. It's already a pretty tight connection." He shouted at me this time, "What were you thinking?" Since the car was stopped dead, I turned my head so I could meet his eyes and very blankly said, "I'm not here to think." If Uber existed there at the time, I think he would have gotten out of the car with his bag and called for a ride. As it is, I spent the rest of the trip listening to him yell at some poor airline agent about getting his flight rebooked, since it was at this point that he wasn't going to get there in time. And the thing is, this really wasn't even malicious on my end. I was just too timid to rock the boat anymore, so I was doing things exactly as I was told. Not my fault that it bit him in the butt. This is another guy kind of gaslighting you at the end. For stretches of days tells you to follow the GPS, this GPS is so great, tells you not to think, and then has the gall to get upset when you actually follow the route and surprise, it's not a good route. This next story is by Sherlock da Vinci, not qualified for the promotion, then I'll just do my job. A few years ago, I worked for a furniture store in the back store. My job consisted of unloading and loading trucks, assembling furniture, and placing it on the main floor of the store. After around 6 months there, my supervisor announced he resigned, meaning his post was up for grabs. I had all the technical requirements, so I applied, but they gave the job to another one of my colleagues who had more experience, which was totally reasonable. After maybe 1 year, my then supervisor just stopped coming into work for no reason. He just decided he had enough and he just left. No 2-week notice or anything. So while the director tried to get to him, I took over the role of supervisor. I was the one with the most experience. Which means that combined with my regular work, I was now the one telling people what to do, when, doing the schedule, and all the paperwork for shipment. 3 weeks later, my colleague was officially fired by my director. In those 3 weeks, I kept doing the job of supervisor and doing it pretty well, so I thought that the promotion would come to me, but my director did nothing. I went to see him, explained what I had been doing, and asked if I got the promotion too, which he answered that I was not qualified nor smart enough to do this job. After some thinking, I just decided that if I was not smart enough to do the job, then I shouldn't do it. So I went back to doing my regular job, and I also started looking for something else. 4 to 5 days after I stopped filling in, my director comes to see me in the back store asking why the freak the job isn't being done. After all, without me to organize it, nothing was getting out of the store to be delivered to the client. I just reminded him of our previous meeting and he told me, "Yeah, I remembered that. What I meant is you're not qualified to get the pay bonus for the job. You still have to do the job, you idiot." I have to admit, I still wonder how he thought that would work. Still a bit dumbfounded, I just told him that if I wasn't going to get paid for it, I certainly won't do the job. And that considering we were already short-staffed with my old supervisor gone, he should be a bit more polite. Apparently, this was an unreasonable request, a total lack of respect to him and worthy of firing me. Yep, still don't get how that would fix anything, but hey, he's the boss. I packed everything and left, knowing that the back store, which needed 5 people to operate, was now down to 3, with the most experienced worker having a total of 4 months. It only took my boss 1 day to call me back and telling me maybe he went overboard and that perhaps we could arrange something for the promotion. To which I replied that I would not be coming back since I had a few interviews lined up. I hung up while he was still cussing at me. After a few months at my new job, I heard some surprising news. The store had closed down after 2 other backstore employees resigned. Gotta admit that it felt good to see my old boss finally get what he deserved. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume that the store was already bleeding money pretty heavily towards the end there, which is why they tried to get away with not paying you for the promotion and why the store was already understaffed. It was a great decision to get out of there when you could because it was probably already a sinking ship, if it wasn't already too obvious. And our final story of the day is by Galaxy Cube 101, 30 pairs of underwear. I remember a lot of stories from my childhood. For context, my parents are what many define as narcissistic. This is a rather funny example of what they would do on a daily basis. I had just finished watching a movie when my mom came in and asked me when the last time I did the laundry was. I looked at her and said plainly, only about a week ago. I had a lot of clothes, so I didn't have to do laundry as often. She scoffed and said, "What about your underwear? I'm sure you've been wearing the same pair for months." I tried not to laugh and told her I changed my underwear every day. "Oh sure, I know you don't have 30 pairs of underwear," she frowned at me. "Actually, I do," I said. "Then show me," she shouted back. I smiled as she left and did exactly what she said. I got a small box, went into my closet and dresser, and began collecting every pair of underwear I could. After about 15 minutes or so of gathering underwear, I walked out of my room to her and thrust the box in front of her. "What is this?" she demanded to know. 30 pairs of underwear, just like you asked. I smiled at her, she gave me an icy glare, and started counting them out one by one. "This is only 29, she said when she was done. "Oh, my bad." I smiled and dropped my pants, showing off a bright yellow pair of underwear. She never bothered me about laundry after that. Honestly, as a lazy guy, having 30 pairs of underwear is like a prerequisite. My dresser has so many random pairs of underwear from over the years that it's hard to close it. Although, if I was asked to prove it, I would maybe show the dresser and not have that little show at the end where you literally drop your pants in front of your parents. I'm not sure about that whole one. I mean, that's a very bold move, good for OP, but not something that I would do, that's for sure. I guess the one thing you can really say about that situation is OP handed it to their mom. Alright, end of story. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.